Hello everyone and welcome to Biology with Dr. Soniyaa Shrivastava. Plants prepare their own food by photosynthesis, but they also need energy to survive and grow. In this chapter, we'll explore how plants break down glucose to release energy, where respiration takes place, and why this process is essential for every living cell. So let's begin with respiration in plants. Let us start with our first MCQ. That is MCQ number 1. This is concept based. Plants require energy even during the night when photosynthesis does not occur. Which process continuously supplies this energy in plants? So student, before coming to the option, let us see the logic behind it. We know that plants are living organisms and they need energy for all life process, and energy is released by breaking down glucose. This process is called respiration. The process where plants break down glucose by utilizing oxygen to form carbon dioxide, water and energy in the form of ATP. This process occurs day and night. Many students think that plants respire only at night because photosynthesis occurs during the day, but this is a misconception. Remember student, plant respire continuously during both day and night. During the daytime, photosynthesis and respiration both occur simultaneously, but at night only respiration occurs. So let's see our options. So our correct answer is option number B, that is respiration. Respiration is the process in which glucose is broken down into carbon dioxide, water and energy in the form of ATP. Since every cell requires a continuous supply of energy, respiration occurs throughout the day and night. Why other options are wrong? Photosynthesis produces glucose but does not continuously supply energy, especially at night. Therefore, this is the wrong option. Why not transpiration? Because it involves loss of water vapor and is not an energy producing process. Therefore, this is also the wrong option. Why not photorespiration? Photorespiration consumes energy and is not the primary process responsible for ATP production. Therefore, this is also the wrong option. Moving on to MCQ number 2. This is application based question. Which of the following best explains why simple diffusion is sufficient for gaseous exchange in plants? Student, first of all, what is diffusion? Diffusion is the process in which molecules of any substance migrate from region of higher concentration to the region of lower concentration. So before coming to the options, let us see the logic behind this question. As you see in this diagram, these are living cells. All these living cells are close to the surface, that is to outside air for oxygen to enter easily and CO2 to exit easily. And all these cells are lie close to each other. Therefore, the distance from gas movement is very short from surface as well as between the cells. So, the diffusion is sufficient. No active transport is required as well as no specialized respiratory organs are required. Most living cells in plants are located close to each other as well as close to the surface, so gases travel only a short distance. Therefore, simple diffusion is sufficient. Let's come to our options. Now we can say that our correct answer is option number B. Most living cells in plants are located close to the surface, so gases travel only short distances by diffusion, making specialized respiratory organs unnecessary. Option number A. Plants actively pump oxygen into every cell. Plants do not actively pump oxygen. Gaseous exchange only occurs by diffusion. Therefore, this option is wrong. Why not option C? Plants possess microscopic lungs inside their stems. Plants do not possess any lungs or any specialized respiratory organs. Therefore, this option is also wrong. Why not option D? Diffusion is faster than active transport in all organisms, because diffusion is a passive process and is not universally faster than active transport. Therefore, this option is also wrong. Let us see MCQ number 3, which is concept based. Why is the rate of gaseous exchange in plants much slower than in animals? So before coming to the options, let's see the logic first. Student, we know that plants are stationary. They do not move around to find food or shelter. Because of that, less energy is required. So without motion or without locomotion, their overall power demands are low. So because of that, lower metabolic rate. That means this low energy demand results in slower chemical metabolism compared to active animals. So less oxygen is needed. Slower metabolism means they consume less fuel and oxygen, and thus slower gaseous exchange. Consequently, they exchange gases with the environment at much slower pace than animals. Now let us see our options. So student, our correct option is option number B, that plants have much lower metabolic rate than animals because they do not perform rapid movements. Therefore, their demand for oxygen is lower and gaseous exchange occurs slowly through diffusion. Why not option A? Plants lack mitochondria for respiration. Plants possess mitochondria in all living cells where respiration takes place. Therefore, this option is wrong. Why not option C? Plants absorb oxygen only during the night. Plants absorb oxygen whenever required for respiration, both during the day and night. Therefore, this option is also wrong. Why not option D? Plants perform respiration only in green tissues. Respiration occurs in all living cells, not just green tissue. Therefore, this option is also wrong. Do not confuse photosynthesis with respiration, because photosynthesis occurs in green cells containing chloroplast in presence of sunlight taking CO2 and releasing O2, while respiration occurs in every living cells of the plant, which includes roots, stems and even non-green tissues. and it occurs day and night, and it takes O2 and releases CO2. Let us see MCQ number 4. This is application based. In a terrestrial plant, the major route for gaseous exchange between the leaf and the atmosphere is through. So student, let's see the diagram first. Student, this is the structure of stomata. This is stomatal pore, which is surrounded by bean-shaped guard cells. Student, leaf possesses thousands of microscopic pores called stomata that open directly into the intercellular space within the mesophyll layer of the leaf. Oxygen and carbon dioxide do not require active transport. They move entirely by passive diffusion through stomata. So in case of leaf, vast majority of gaseous exchange occurs through stomata. Student, it is not the respiratory organ. It is only the pore through which passive diffusion of gases occurs. Now let's see our options. So our correct option is option number C. Stomata are the minute pores present in the leaf, and they serve as the principal pathway for the diffusion of oxygen and CO2 between leaf and atmosphere. Why not cuticle? Because cuticle is largely impermeable. That means it doesn't allow any gases to pass through it and is not the major route of gaseous exchange. Therefore, this is the wrong option. Why not lenticels? Because lenticels facilitate gaseous exchange mainly through woody stems, not leaves. Therefore, this is also the wrong option. Why not xylem vessels? Because xylem transport water and minerals, not atmospheric gases. Therefore, this is also the wrong option. Moving on to MCQ number 5. This is also concept based. Roots of terrestrial plants obtain oxygen required for respiration primarily from. Before coming to the options, let's see the diagram first. Student, this is the root hair, soil particles, and these are the air spaces. Student, the soil particle contains air spaces, and these spaces contain O2. Oxygen diffuses into root hairs and moves cell to cell via diffusion. And cells use oxygen for respiration. There is a misconception that roots obtain oxygen from water. But remember, roots mainly obtain oxygen from the air present in the spaces between soil particles, not from dissolved oxygen in water. Let's come to our options. So our correct answer is option number B. Air present in spaces between soil particles. Oxygen diffuses into the root hairs and then reaches to inner cells by diffusion for respiration. Why not A? Water absorbed by root hairs? Because water absorbed by root hairs is not the primary source of oxygen for respiration. Therefore, this is the wrong option. Why not C? Oxygen transported through xylem vessels from leaves? Oxygen is not transported through xylem vessels for respiration. Therefore, this is the wrong option. Why not D? Carbon dioxide released during photosynthesis. Carbon dioxide cannot be used in place of oxygen for aerobic respiration. Therefore, this is also the wrong option. Moving on to MCQ number 6. This is concept based. In the woody plants, gaseous exchange with the atmosphere primarily takes place through. So student, before coming to the option, let's see the diagram first. This is the diagram of transverse section of woody stem. Student, apart from leaf, the young green stem also contains active stomata to facilitate gaseous exchange for respiration. But as these stems becomes mature or older, it becomes woody and thus form the hard and thick layer of bark, which is known as periderm. That is the bark. And because of this thick layer, the original stomata becomes non-functional. So to maintain the structural respiration, porous openings called lenticels form within the periderm, and these lenticels provide the large intercellular spaces that becomes the primary pathway for oxygen and CO2 exchange in woody tissues. So let us come to our option. So our correct answer is lenticels. Lenticels are the small openings present in the periderm, that is bark of woody stems, and they permit the diffusion of O2 into the stem and carbon dioxide out, enabling the respiration. Now why not option A, stomata? Stomata are mainly present on the leaves and young green stems, not on mature woody stems. Therefore, this is the wrong option. Why not root hairs? Root hairs absorb oxygen from soil and are not involved in gaseous exchange of stems. Therefore, this is also the wrong option. Why not xylem vessels? We already know that xylem transport water and minerals, and it is not the respiratory structure. Therefore, this is also the wrong option. Let us move on to MCQ number 7, which is diagram based. The given figure shows 3 different regions of a plant involved in gaseous exchange. Which option correctly matches the structure with their primary route of gaseous exchange? Let us see the diagram first. This is the diagram PQR. The first one is diagram of leaf having the stomata, and through stomata gaseous exchange takes place. Now the Q, this is the root diagram, this is root hair, and in case of root, through root hair gaseous exchange, that is oxygen exchange, takes place. And this is the diagram of woody stem, and in which the small pores present, which is the lenticels, through which gaseous exchange takes place. Student, always remember that in plants, stomata is not only the structure through which gaseous exchange takes place, but also the root hair and lenticels through which gaseous exchange takes place. So always remember the LSR rule. For memory tip, that L is for leaf, that is stomata, S is for stem, that is lenticel, and R is for root, through root hair. Gaseous exchange takes place for respiration. So let us come to the options. So our correct answer is option A, that P is for stomata. Leaves exchange gases mainly through stomata, and roots obtain oxygen through root hairs by diffusion from air spaces in the soil, and mature woody stem exchange gases through lenticels. Now why not B, C and D? Because these are incorrect matching of three structure. So this is the wrong option. Moving on to MCQ number 8. This is application based question. A healthy green plant is kept in bright sunlight for several hours. Which of the following statements is correct regarding gaseous exchange? Let us first see the logic behind it. In bright sunlight, photosynthesis occurs at much faster rate than respiration. That is, rate of photosynthesis is greater than rate of respiration. That means more CO2 is consumed than released. That is, net movement of CO2 is inward. That is, CO2 diffuses inside the leaf. Photosynthesis consumes large amount of CO2 and produces large amount of O2. So, O2 produced is greater than consumed. Respiration only uses small fraction of O2. This leaves the high concentration of excess O2 inside the leaf. So, the net movement of O2 is outward. That is, O2 diffuses out of the leaf. Let's see our options. So our correct answer is option B. Oxygen diffuses out of the leaf while carbon dioxide diffuses into the leaf. In bright sunlight, photosynthesis produced at a much higher rate than respiration. Therefore, the plant takes in more CO2 than it releases and releases more oxygen than it consumes. Why not option A? Both oxygen and carbon dioxide enter the leaf simultaneously. Although both the process occur simultaneously, but the net movement is CO2 inward and O2 outward. So this option is wrong. Why not C? Carbon dioxide diffuses out while oxygen diffuses into the leaf. This is incorrect. This represents the opposite of what happens in bright sunlight. Therefore, this is the wrong option. Why not D? No gaseous exchange occurs because photosynthesis and respiration cancels each other. Respiration never stops, but both processes occur simultaneously. Therefore, this is also the wrong option. Moving on to MCQ number 9. This is assertion reason based question. What is assertion given here? That plants do not require specialized respiratory organs for gaseous exchange. What is reason given here? That every living cell in a plant is located close to the surface, allowing gases to diffuse over short distances. So student, before coming to the options, let us see the assertion and reason and most important connection between them. What is the assertion given here? That plants do not require specialized respiratory organs for gaseous exchange. Yes, this statement is true. Why this statement is true? Because unlike animals, plants do not have complex specialized respiratory organs like lungs or gills. They meet their gas exchange through stomata in case of leaf, lenticels in case of stem, and root hairs in case of root. Now coming to the reason. Every living cell in a plant is located close to the surface, allowing gases to diffuse over short distances. Yes, this statement is also true. Why this statement is true? Plant tissues are organized in such a way that living cells are placed highly superficial or close to the surface. Now let us see the connection between reason and assertion. Because every living cell is located very close to the surface, that is external environment, diffusion alone is sufficient. Gases can easily and quickly travel the short distances by simple diffusion. This is why plants do not need a complex breathing system or respiratory organs. Therefore, reason completely explains the assertion. Now let us see our options. Now we already know that our assertion is true and our reason is true, and reason completely explains the assertion. So our correct answer is both assertion and reason are true, and reason is the correct explanation of assertion. Why not B? Because the reason directly explains the assertion. Therefore, this is wrong. Why not C? The reason is also true. Therefore, this is wrong. Why not D? Because the assertion is true. Therefore, this is also wrong. Now, let us see MCQ number 10. This is application based. A potted plant is kept in waterlogged soil for several days. After some time, the plant begins to wilt even though sufficient water is available. What is the most appropriate explanation? So let's see the logic behind it. If the potted plant is kept in waterlogged soil, what happens? Air spaces between the soil particle is filled with water. So, less O2 becomes available. So, because of the less O2, root respiration reduced, and because of that, less ATP produced, and thus active absorption of minerals also get reduced, and this causes plants to wilt. Many students think that plenty of water is present, that means plant should remain healthy, but this is incorrect. Why? Because the roots require oxygen for respiration, not just water. Excess water displaces air in soil and limiting O2 availability. Student, remember like that too much water is equal to too little O2. Always remember, water logging means oxygen deficiency, poor root respiration means wilting. So let's see our options. Now we already know that our correct answer is option B. That is, air spaces in the soil become filled with water, reducing oxygen availability for root respiration. Why not option A? Waterlogging increases the rate of photosynthesis. Waterlogging does not increase the rate of photosynthesis. Therefore, this option is wrong. Why not option C? Roots begin to absorb carbon dioxide instead of oxygen. Roots continue to require oxygen for aerobic respiration. Therefore, this option is also wrong. Why not option D? Lenticels become blocked, preventing gaseous exchange in leaves. Lenticels are present in stem, woody stem, and are unrelated to this situation. Therefore, this is also the wrong option. Moving on to MCQ number 11. This is statement based. Consider the following statements regarding gaseous exchange in plants. Statement 1. Every living cell in a plant is located close enough to the surface for efficient gaseous exchange by diffusion. Statement 2. Plants possess specialized respiratory organs similar to lungs in mammals. Statement number 3. The large intercellular spaces present in many plant tissues facilitate gaseous diffusion. Statement 4. The rate of gaseous exchange in plants is generally much slower than in animals. Which of the following is correct? So, student, before coming to the options, let us first see the logic. Always remember like that in plants, living cells are close to the surface, have intercellular spaces, but no specialized respiratory organs. Because cells are close to the surface, diffusion is sufficient and also slower gaseous exchange than animals. Student, remember, plants rely on diffusion aided by short diffusion distances because the cells are close to the surface and intercellular spaces. They do not possess lungs or gills. For your memory tip, think of 3D rule for plants. D for diffusion, D for distance, short, and D for distributed intercellular spaces. So now let us see our options. So our first statement that every living cell in a plant is located close enough to the surface for efficient gaseous exchange by diffusion is correct. Statement 2, plants possess specialized respiratory organs similar to lungs in mammals is incorrect. Statement 3, the large intercellular spaces present in many plant tissues facilitate gaseous diffusion is also correct. Statement 4, the rate of gaseous exchange in plants is generally much slower than in animals. This is also correct. So, our correct answer is option number B, as statement 1, 3 and 4 is correct. So, this is our correct answer. A is incorrect because statement 2 is false. Statement C is incorrect because statement 2 is false and statement 1 is true. Statement D is incorrect because statement 2 is false. That's all for this video. In the next video, we'll study glycolysis, the first stage of respiration. Thank you for watching. If you found this helpful, don't forget to subscribe.